To make a paper mache egg, there are a few different materials that you will need and a few different methods you can use. Obviously, you're going to need an egg form. Plastic Easter eggs are great, especially the larger size that you can get. You can do smaller ones as well, or even bigger, depending on how much time you have and the materials you have available. So you will need an egg shape. It's good to work on something plastic like a lid. You'll also need some newspaper scraps. If you also have solid color newsprint, that's great, but you don't need it. And then you're going to need some paper mache paste. So this is Elmer's art paste that's already been mixed up inside of a food storage container, which is a great way to mix it and store it. And then you just give it a good shake. And you'll open it up. And some of it should already be on the lid, but there's also inside this container a sponge. And so you're going to dig that out. It's kind of slimy, but you're going to dig it out and put that onto the lid because you're going to use that to apply the paper mache. All right, so let's get started. We're going to take a few pieces of newspaper and just put it on top of that sponge and let it just really soak in. You'll see that the newspaper, as it gets saturated, changes color. So it goes from that lighter color and then it gets darker as the paste gets into the paper. So you want to wait for that to turn completely. And then you're going to pick it up and put it onto your plastic form. Smooth it down. And then as you place a second piece, you want to overlap it a little bit. Keep doing that until the entire egg is covered. That's going to be your first layer of paper mache. After your first layer of newspaper for your paper mache is on, if you do have a plain newsprint, you can alternate layers so that way you can see a difference in color and you know whether or not you have 2 layers or 3 layers or however many layers. So I'm going to switch over to the regular newsprint now and apply it in pretty much the same way. Alright, so now I've got the layer of plain newsprint. I'm going to do a third layer with the printed out newspaper. So after 3 layers, you can see that there's a lot of paste on my hands and on the egg. You can, when it gets to this point where it's very wet, just apply some paper directly onto the egg and then smooth it out with the paste that's on your hands. So I'm going to switch again to the plain newsprint to do a 4th layer. As I mentioned, there are 2 methods to make this paper mache egg. I'm going to continue with this egg showing you method 1, and then I'll show you method 2 on a different egg. For method 1, you're going to continue making additional layers of paper mache. So I've already got 4 layers on here. You want to do at least 4 more layers before you get to your finishing layers of white paper and tissue paper. So we're going to do 4 more layers of the printed newspaper and the plain newsprint. Okay, so if you have time, there are just 2 more interior layers for this paper mache egg before you would be able to start your surface finishing. I'm going to go ahead and prepare those materials, and then I'll show you what they are. So the last two interior layers involve switching to white, and this is optional, especially if you're going to finish with acrylic paint or something, but having a white as your final base really does help if you're going to use something like tissue paper or a different finishing method, which we'll go over later. So I have lots of pieces of just regular copier paper, and I'm going to apply these as a layer to the egg. So that is the copier or printer paper layer, and now there's just one more layer, and this one is a little bit of a fragile layer. You want to make sure that the egg is really well coated in the paper mache, so I'm going to use the sponge and just make sure that the egg shape has paper mache paste on it so that it's sticky. And then the last thing is just a piece of white gift tissue paper, and this is going to go over and wrap around the egg. So I'm just going to sort of move that out of the way, and you're going to lay the egg down and then just wrap it. And as you do it, you just want to smooth and try not to get too many creases. And then you can also use the sponge on the outer part, any pieces that seem to not be sticking, and just use that sponge to really smooth it out. When you're happy with how smooth you've got it, you're going to just take this egg and set it aside to let it completely dry. You want this totally dry before you do your outside exterior finishing. So a great way to store these while you're waiting for them to dry, and then also to display them, is to find like a soda bottle or water bottle cap, and you're just going to put that down and then stand the egg up on that, and then just let it harden. Make sure you have it standing in the position that you want it to be in, and that it's stable, because sometimes as it dries it does make a little indent in the bottom of the egg, and then that becomes pretty much permanent. So you want that to be stable so that your egg will stand when it's finished. And this is method 1, which is the lost egg method, and I will show you method 2, which preserves that plastic egg so it can be reused more than once. For method 2, you're going to need an X-Acto knife or some kind of cutting tool, and an egg that you've already covered in 4 layers of paper mache that has completely dried. This step is something that is most likely best done by an adult. I would not recommend doing it with children because it is a little bit dangerous due to the blade. So you're going to actually slice into your egg, and if you had a plastic egg, it might have a little bump where the seam is and you can still feel it through the paper mache. That's going to give you a guide for where to cut around the seam of the egg, and you're just going to saw away at this. It does take about 4 minutes per egg, and so that is a little bit time consuming. If you can use the lost egg method, it's going to be much faster and much safer. Once you've sawed through, you're just going to pop the 2 pieces off and then pull the egg out from inside. Now you're just going to use a piece of masking tape to seal up that open part of the egg. So just take some tape and close up that seam. Once you've done that, your egg is going to be whole again, and you can finish it the same way you did in method 1. Just add additional layers of paper mache and then finish with the white paper and the tissue paper as the final 2 layers. To review, you start with the plastic egg, then you get the taped version, and then you finish off all of your layers until it looks like the completed egg. There are many different ways that you can finish your eggs. So you can use colored tissue paper, which is a great final layer, and it actually will dry faster and let you work faster than if you were using paint. And then if you put a layer of gloss medium or Mod Podge over that, it looks really shiny and amazing. You can embellish it with some glitter or sequins or gems. You can also use metallic markers or metallic pens and draw over an egg after you've either painted it with watercolor like this one, and then seal all of that as well to give it a nice shiny look. You can combine tissue paper with the metallic markers and metallic pens and gems and get a look like this egg. You can also use a mixture of gold paint with glue to get sort of a raised gold that you can draw with on your egg. And that looks really amazing and awesome as well. And then add gems, of course, so that it looks really regal and beautiful. For the eggs that have these sort of sequins on them, those are best attached with hot glue, the sequins and the gems. When you use regular glue, they tend to pop off. So if students are using the hot glue themselves, they should be really trained on safety, or the teacher should probably use the hot glue when applying any of these gems or sequins.